Hello again. In this video, I will explain Revelation 1:7. Behold, he comes with the clouds, and every eye will see him. And I'll show you why it's not about the second coming of Jesus. I was surprised to find this out. I used to think it was about the second coming because that's what everyone seems to teach, but I found out that everyone gets this Bible verse wrong. Now, what convinced me that this verse is not about the second coming was my deep study in the Olivet Discourse, Matthew 24 and 25, which resulted in the Olivet Discourse playlist on this channel. In 12 videos, I explain all of Matthew 24 and 25, some of which is about the second coming, but much of which is not. In that playlist, I made clear which is which by reading the text in its context. And what we'll find is that Revelation 1:7 is a quotation of what Jesus said in Matthew 24, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven. In videos 5 and 6 of the playlist, I explain why Jesus was talking about the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD and not about his return in our future, the second coming. So let's look at Revelation 1:7 and see what it's all about. It reads, "Behold, he comes with the clouds, and every eye will see him, even those who pierced him, and all the tribes of the land will mourn on account of him. Yes, Amen." Now I realize that to our modern ear, it sounds like it could be the second coming, but it doesn't matter what it sounds like to us. It wasn't written to us, but to first century Jewish Christians. If we don't understand it as they would have, we're taking it out of context. So why think it's not about the second coming? Because of the context in which we find it. The book of Revelation begins, "The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show to his servants the things that must soon take place." This book describes itself as a revelation of Jesus, not a revelation of events in the distant future. In fact, it claims to be about events that would happen soon for the original audience. Question: was the second coming an event that would take place soon for the first century Christians? Obviously not, so already we should doubt that verse 7 is about the second coming. We read in verse 3, "Blessed is the one who reads aloud the words of this prophecy, and blessed are those who hear and who keep what is written in it, for the time is near." So just as it's about events that will take place soon, the time of those events is near to the people it was written to, the first century churches. And just as the second coming wasn't soon for them, the time of it wasn't near for them. Now, in the Old Testament, Daniel was given a prophecy in chapter 8 about the rise and fall of Alexander the Great's empire. He was then told in verse 26, "The vision of the evenings and the mornings that has been told is true, but seal up the vision, for it refers to many days from now." It would be over 200 years from Daniel until Alexander the Great, so he was told, seal up the prophecy. It was not going to take place soon, and its time was not near. The original audience of Daniel would all be dead, so the prophecy was for a future generation to unseal, like you would a time capsule. But what is John told in Revelation? In the last chapter of the book, verse 22:10, an angel speaks to him. "And he said to me, do not seal up the words of the prophecy of this book, for the time is near." Where Daniel was told to seal his prophecy because it would be centuries later, John is told not to seal his prophecy because it would happen soon. Its time was near. The original audience of Revelation would still be alive when the events took place, so the prophecy was not to be sealed. It was not for a future generation, such as ours. Revelation was intended for its first readers. So at the beginning and end of the book, and several places where Jesus says, "I am coming soon," the book of Revelation makes clear that it is not about future events, but near events taking place soon. And when we find verse 7 in that context, we know it's not about the second coming, but a coming that would happen while the generation who first read it was still living. What coming could that be? Well, the same one Jesus spoke about in Matthew 24:30, which I explained in videos 5 and 6 of my Olivet Discourse series. There was a cloud coming in judgment on the wicked city of Jerusalem in 70 AD for their sin of rejecting and killing their Messiah, Jesus Christ. In those previous videos, I explained that Jesus' words in context are taken from several Old Testament pictures of Yahweh coming with the clouds in judgment to destroy a wicked city. If you don't understand how all that works, you should really watch videos 5 and 6. In this video, I'm going to assume you know it. So why think Revelation 1:7 is a quotation of Jesus' words in Matthew 24? Let me show you. You'll recall in Matthew 24:2, Jesus said of the temple complex, all these things will be thrown down, not one stone left on another. His disciples ask, when will these things be? And Jesus gives his answer, ending with, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. Now, within his answer about the destruction of the temple, Jesus says in Matthew 24:30, then will appear the banner of the Son of Man in heaven. Then all the tribes of the land will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming upon the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Notice all the similarities with our passage. Revelation 1:7, he comes with the clouds. Matthew 24:30, the Son of Man coming upon the clouds. Revelation, every eye will see him. Matthew, they will see the Son of Man. Revelation, all the tribes of the land will mourn. Matthew, all the tribes of the land will mourn. This last one is a verbatim quote, word for word in the Greek. In all the Bible, this verse appears only in these two verses, and that includes the Greek translation of the Old Testament. This is highly significant because Revelation has very few word-for-word quotations, as all the commentators will tell you. So it's quite clear that Revelation 1:7 is a quotation of Matthew 24:30, and therefore is referring to the same coming, the coming in judgment to destroy Jerusalem in 70 AD in our past. Now, I realize this may come as a shock to many of you. It was quite a surprise to me as well. But the context makes clear what the real meaning is, even if many modern teachers take it out of context and say it's the second coming. So now I need to clear up certain objections and misunderstandings that might come in response. First, someone might say, how can the fall of Jerusalem be soon and near for the first readers of Revelation? I was told it was written in 95 AD after the fall of the city. Well, the late dating of Revelation to around 95 AD is currently the most popular theory, but there are still many scholars who use the early date in the late 60s before Jerusalem fell. The early date used to be more popular with scholars, so there's a controversy here. Obviously, I agree with the early dating, and if you want to see the best scholarly evidence for it, I recommend Kenneth Gentry's book, Before Jerusalem Fell, Dating the Book of Revelation. But it's not necessary for us to resolve the controversy among the scholars. We can simply let the book of Revelation itself tell us when it was written. In chapter 17, John sees the great prostitute seated on a beast with 7 heads and 10 horns, which is explained to him in verse 9. This calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman is seated. They are also 7 kings, 5 of whom have fallen. One is, the other has not yet come, and when he does come, he must remain only a little while. The city of Rome was known then and still today as the city on 7 hills, and in this ancient Roman coin, we see the goddess Roma seated on 7 hills. So the beast is Rome. The 7 kings are therefore the Caesars of Rome, and we're told 5 of them have died, 1 is alive now, another is coming, but only briefly. The first 5 Caesars are Julius, Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula, and Claudius. At the time of writing, they're all dead. The one who is would be the next Caesar, Nero, and the one who will come briefly is Galba, who only reigned for 7 months, a little while indeed. So right here, the book of Revelation tells us it was written during the reign of Nero, who was Caesar from 54 to 68. And this passage can't be made to fit Domitian, the 12th Caesar, who reigned in 95. So yes, the fall of Jerusalem was soon and near for the first audience because Revelation was probably written in the late 60s, just 2 to 5 years before the city's destruction. We even get another hint from the text when John says to the church in chapter 1, verse 9, I, John, your brother and partner in the tribulation and the kingdom and the patient endurance that are in Jesus, was on the island called Patmos. Here he uses the present tense. I am your partner in the tribulation. Question, which tribulation would that be? Well, the one that was going on at the time he wrote it. The same great tribulation that Jesus spoke of in Matthew 24 when answering the disciples' question about when the temple would be destroyed. And in video 4 of my Olivet Discourse series, I explained that the Great Tribulation Jesus spoke of is also not a future event, but refers to the Jewish-Roman War of 66 to 70 AD in our past. A war begun, by the way, in the reign of Nero Caesar. That's what the Great Tribulation is when read in context, and if you want to see why, go watch that video. So when John tells the churches of the first century, I am your partner in the tribulation, we have another time marker. He likely means the war has already begun, but it could be he's referring to the run-up to the war, which Jesus called the beginning of the birth pangs. Either way, Revelation was written during the reign of Nero, probably after the war started in the late 60s AD. And yes, the cloud coming of Jesus in judgment on Jerusalem was soon and near for the first audience. Another objection that I've heard is that when the first verse of Revelation talks about things that must take place soon, what it really means is that whenever these things take place, maybe thousands of years later, they will happen quickly. That's a clever excuse, but it doesn't work. First of all, why doesn't the text say what they claim it means? Why doesn't Revelation 1:1 say, to show to his servants the things that have not yet come, but when they do come, they must happen in a little while? You can say that in Greek. In fact, I just read you a verse that does say things that way. Referring to Galba, the 8th Caesar, it says, the other has not yet come, and when he does come, he must remain only a little while. But that's not what we find in Revelation 1:1. It says these things must take place soon. This objection also doesn't explain the phrase, the time is near. Even if it did say, when they come, they'll come quickly, it would still be the case that the time they come is very near to the first audience. And this objection doesn't explain why John is told not to seal the scroll of prophecy the way Daniel was. Even Daniel's sealed prophecy was only 200 years away. How could the unsealed prophecy wait more than 2,000 years? No, you have to take the Bible for what it says and means in context, not what you want it to say and mean. Instead, the events were to take place soon and near for the first audience, and that includes verse 1:7, behold, he comes with the clouds. It refers to the destruction of Jerusalem in our past, not to the return of Jesus in our future. Also, this understanding helps us with two other passages in the Gospels that trip up a lot of modern teachers. In Matthew 10, Jesus sends out the 12 to preach the kingdom and tells them what to expect. He ends with verse 23, when they persecute you in one town, flee to the next. For truly I say to you, you will not have gone through all the towns of Israel before the Son of Man comes. This is addressed to the 12 disciples. He says, I say to you, the infant church of the first century will not have evangelized all the towns of Israel before a coming of Jesus. What coming would that be? From all we've seen, it must be the cloud coming in judgment on Jerusalem in 70 AD. We also read in Matthew 16:28, truly I say to you, there are some standing here who will not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Jesus refers to a coming that will take place before all 12 disciples have died. This is the same time marker as this generation will not pass away that I discuss in video 2 of the Olivet Discourse series. Question, have all 12 of those disciples died? If so, then there must have been a coming of Jesus in their lifetime. Which coming was that? Was it the second coming? Was it the general resurrection, the final judgment, the beginning of eternity? No, of course not. It must be the judgment coming on Jerusalem. Many modern Christians and teachers get all tied up in knots trying to explain these verses when they think it refers to the second coming. How can it be before all the disciples have died? Well, it can't be, and it doesn't have to be, because this refers to a different coming of Jesus. Remember, there were several cloud comings of Yahweh in the Old Testament, so there's no problem with more than one coming of Jesus. This cloud coming and the second coming are not the same one. The cloud coming to Jerusalem is in our past. The second coming remains in our future. All right, time to summarize it all. What is Revelation 1:7 all about when read in context? Well, it's not about the second coming in our future. That doesn't match the context. Rather, it's a description of the cloud coming in judgment on Jerusalem in 70 AD that will result in the destruction of the temple. It's the very same event mentioned by Jesus in Matthew 24:30, where John, the author of Revelation, was present and heard his words, and which is mentioned by all three other gospel writers. And Revelation 1:7 uses the same words that Jesus used. It's a quotation. It was written to the original audience, the Christian churches of the late 60s AD, during the reign of Nero Caesar, a man the number of whose name is 666. It's a prophecy about a future event for them, which was coming soon, whose time was near, an event that would happen before the church finished evangelizing all the towns of Israel, before all 12 disciples had tasted death, before the generation living at that time had passed away, and it serves as a last-minute reminder to the Christians to get out of Jerusalem, which they did, so we know it worked. A reminder that they needed on the basis of Jesus' warning, which was given 35 years earlier, lest they forget. Everything matches perfectly in context, so we can know what it means. And I know it will be difficult for some of you to accept this, especially if you've been hearing it is the second coming your whole life. But I don't ask you to accept it on my authority, but on the basis of the text of the Bible and the context in which it was given. You should test all authorities, including me, and test them against the scripture and the context. I know it's scary to give up what you were taught by your favorite authority, maybe a parent or pastor or favorite teacher. But however much authority they have, the Bible has more authority because it's the Word of God. We have to stop using Revelation 1:7 as a description of the second coming of Jesus. That's not what it's about. And to say that it is twisting the scriptures. Revelation 1:7 is about the destruction of Jerusalem in our past. That's what it means when we read it in context. And that's my mission here at the Disciples of Yahweh, to show you what the text means when read in context, so you can do it too. As always, I pray this video has blessed you. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your prayers and support. God bless you all.